Continuing our conversation with prominent local lawyers Reese Norris and Chris Barano. I want to go back to Eddie Perez, then we'll get into the Cheshire murders. This was a big deal for the state to win this case. The Public Integrity Unit, the feds in the past have gotten all the acclaim for bringing down corrupt politicians. This was a big one for the state. A lot of pressure on Kevin Kane. Your thoughts now on them having a sigh of relief that they got one?
Well, it's a big victory. It's a big victory for justice, and it's a big victory for Mr. Kane, and even more so for the investigators that put the case together and the prosecutors that worked on it day to day. The Public Integrity Unit in that office started when I was Chief State's Attorney, and it's a difficult thing to start doing. Public Integrity Units around the country, even with the feds, when they would first start, they had to creep and stumble before they could walk.
And someone whispered, as you know, that if this was really a strong case, that the feds would have taken it. So there was some pressure on the state, and some felt it wasn't a very strong case going into this. Your thoughts on that?
I think that they worked very hard. I mean, we had some very, very good people working on it. Inspector Sullivan, very, very experienced. He cut his teeth doing homicides and gang cases in New Britain, and he utilized some of those techniques, the wearing a wire when he interviewed the mayor to ensnare this defendant.
Is that unique, wearing the wire to interview a mayor? Is that something that is different, or is done? Or is that
at the state level, I'm sure that it's done all the time federally, but this was just excellently done. I'm sure that there was cooperation with federal authorities, and kudos go to Mr. Kane and to all the members of the Public Integrity Unit who worked so hard not only to put the case together, but to prove it before a jury.
Segue to New Haven, gruesome murder trial there, Cheshire, 3 years later. Stephen Hayes is up first. Some just terrible things come out of the details of that crime. You've got murder, arson, rape. Your thoughts as experienced lawyers watching this case unfold?
This is a painful thing to watch. And we can see that with the jurors, and with jurors being excused.
4 jurors have been excused so far, right?
Absolutely. And I can't even conceive being a juror in this case. It's very, very painful. It's going to be painful for everyone. I mean, there's no winners in a case like this. Everyone's a loser. This is, in my experience, practicing 37 years, I've never heard of a more horrific crime. It's very, very difficult. And yet, the trial seems to have to go on.
So why not maybe cut a deal here? The Stephen Hayes appears to be taking culpability for a certain part of this. Why not cut a deal and not go through this trial?
Well, I think that in deciding whether to cut a deal would be, I suppose, that the death penalty wasn't pursued.
Right.
But in making that decision, Mr. Dearington doesn't do it lightly.
The prosecutor?
Yes. He's never been one to seek the death penalty, and often his jurisdiction was pitted against other jurisdictions by defense attorneys who said it wasn't being fairly instituted across the state. He, knowing him as I do, would look at the facts, look at the law, discuss it with his staff, discuss it with Dr. Pettit, and discuss it probably with some of his fellow state's attorneys before he made that decision. But there are some cases that cry out for a jury or a finder of fact to make a decision on guilt or non-guilt, and also as whether or not there should be a penalty of death.
Yeah, even though we know the death penalty can take 20, 30 years to get done,
but in this case appears to be one that many feel is appropriate, and more importantly, that Mr. Dearington, who's the chief prosecutor in that jurisdiction, feels is appropriate.
All right, quickly now, having the 2 separate trials, one for Mr. Hayes and one for Mr. Karmazewski, how difficult is that? You go through this again with another person. Why not? Why wouldn't they combine these cases? What was the case to make to not combine it as one?
Well, legally,
trial?
I think there's a problem.
There is a problem. I mean, legally, if there's evidence that would be admissible in a separate trial, it's not admissible in a joint trial. You have evidentiary problems, and the state felt, and I think wisely, that you don't want to try them together.
But the state did try to do some things that would ease the pain and the problems and the ordeal for Dr. Pettit and the loved ones of his family by trying to have 2 separate juries sitting there.
Right.
And that was unique. It did not go forward. And again, I think what you're going to see is Mr. Dearington and his team are going to want to preserve the integrity of their case by not creating an appellate error and putting this case together the good old-fashioned way, and then seeking the verdict they want and then the punishment they want, one step at a time.
Yeah, tough to watch. All these trials are tough, but this one particularly tough for the Pettit family.
Very disturbing.
All right, real quickly now, clean energy, the implosion that rocked the whole country here. Reese, you're an attorney on this.
Yes.
Up this, and where a lot of liability appears to be the case for the lawyers. This is a lawyer's case here because there's clear liability now. How long does it take to settle and rectify some of these victims?
Well, I hope it's important that we get closure. I think it's important for the victims. I think it's important for the defendants they get closure. They're doing business in Middletown. They want to run this plant, and it's
how many bodies again, Reese? How many?
There's 6 deaths and at least 50 injuries. Wow. So this is a horrific situation and a tragic one. But I would hope that the defendants would get together and, in the complex litigation system we have in our civil case, mediate this case and reach a just resolution. The facts are clear. OSHA has spoken, the Chemical Safety Board has spoken, and I think anyone objectively looking at this case realizes that it's a strong liability case. It needs to be resolved.
So it's a matter of how much and how quickly you cut the check.
And there's the other complexity to this is that there is still the potential of a criminal investigation going on.
That's right.
So usually one goes before the other, and they've been working this mating dance where both can proceed. It's a love-hate relationship, but they seem to both be proceeding in the appropriate direction.
That's right. The criminal aspect, there may be some other, in the case there, that it may have been intent on this, or that it was...
Or recklessness.
Recklessness. It could be criminal negligent homicide. It could be negligent homicide. We have various degrees that may be applicable here.
Fair to say that public policy changes will come as a result of all this. There'll be changes in how you construct these plants and procedures and guidelines. Things are in place, but I guess policies on how to tighten up those procedures will probably come in.
Unfortunately, it often takes a tragedy to get some advancements in areas of law and practice, and that's what you see all across the board, including the Cheshire case. There were many changes in the law after that occurred.
We bounce back to Eddie Perez in 30 seconds. Can he bounce back? John Rowland's out now, got a radio show working in Waterbury. Joe Gannon's out now. Who knows what happens there? What's the future for a mayor who gets tainted by scandal? Can he bounce back in 3 years?
Americans love a comeback story, but Mayor Perez is at the very, very beginning of that story, and it's too soon to tell.
All right, Reese Norris and Chris Morano, thanks, guys, for your time. We appreciate it. When we come back, Hartford Current reporter Daniela Altamari will tell us why Linda McMahon is making a lot of noise nationally, folks, as she prepares for what may be a beatdown of Dick Blumenthal in a match to watch for Senate. Don't go away. We'll talk to Daniela and get the inside scoop after this.